Hey, welcome to Service Sharp. This is a podcast all about ServiceNow. We will be talking strategy, architecture, technology, just everything ServiceNow. We are not affiliated with ServiceNow. The opinions expressed are our own. We are just a couple of people that are very passionate about the platform. So hope you'll join us for every episode. And without further ado, here we go.
All right. Welcome back to Service Sharp. This is Jason Gibson. Joining me, as always, is Randy Haas. We've got Brent Peters and Justin Claspel. We're going to be covering today a couple things. The first of which is day-to-day operations, kind of keeping the lights on stuff. And then the next is evangelizing the platform within your organization, kind of a how-to do that. So I guess we'll start with the kind of the day-to-day. Brent, if you'll give me an idea of kind of what you do on a daily basis. I know we do a lot of dev work too, but what do you see most as far as the day-to-day kind of work that you're doing?
Well, there's always those things that come in the day-to-day. Hey, we need a report for this, or I need permissions. So you're giving out role assignments, or you're assigning people into groups and stuff like that. There's also the part that a lot of people forget about, and that's checking your log files to make sure you're not having major issues, making sure your discovery scans are running correctly, and you're not getting a lot of errors there, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I think that one of the things that is neglected quite a bit is, how is the system running? We assume that it's running great and that ServiceNow is watching it, but the reality is it's not the case. You need to go and actually check to make sure that things are going well in your instance. Now, typically, I don't see any significant downs, and when there is, we had one not long ago, and it was a whole 10 minutes. ServiceNow had it up and running, but it could have been prevented, but nobody had been looking at the log files, and that's kind of a learning experience when something goes wrong like that. So have you guys had experiences with that kind of stuff, with downs with ServiceNow? As far as, I know we've been doing it a long time, and there's very rare cases. Matter of fact, that's the first I'm aware of. What about you guys?
I've never had one that at any of the places any of the instances I've worked out of. There's never been an outage to my knowledge. You have even whenever you're doing upgrades, it's just it's not really an outage. It's just waiting for the thing to finish. So
I've had outages with like ancillary stuff, like single sign-on through AD was not working for a while at one place.
Yeah, we've had some issues where like our internal internet connection went down, so we couldn't reach it. But that wasn't a down on the application. One of the instances that I have worked on when we were back on Aspen, so that's way back when the data centers were not really managed by ServiceNow. They were renting or something, but somehow they used to keep instances of different businesses on the same servers, and they weren't really separated well. And another customer had run a very inefficient query on his database, and it actually took our instance, his instance, and several other instances down. And all that was wonderful. For about 10 to 15 minutes, we didn't have a system. But since that time, and that was back in Aspen, we haven't had another outage. But we, as Jason was saying, watching the log files is good because you can see when the system and your status and everything for your instance, to start seeing when things start slowing down, because then you can go, wait a minute, something's starting to happen. You might not bring the instance down, but you might slow it down where people are like, I'm getting this waiting or loading error and stuff like that. So you got to watch that kind of stuff.
They have a performance dashboard you can look at. That's fairly handy. Also, these slow queries is one of the. I don't remember what it's under, but it's in the navigator for slow queries. You can look at that. It's kind of weird. You got to learn how to filter it because doing it by count is not always the most. You do one thing took 16 minutes or whatever, but it was ran one time. Who cares? Almost.
Right, but it's the things that are running every 2 minutes and they're taking 3 minutes to finish.
Yeah, stuff like that. Or anything that's gotten several hundred, depending on how long you've had it going, I guess. But it is handy to figure out if you've got a really bad query. Maybe you need to work on. We had this the other day where we made the query itself be a little more specific, and while that particular query was never going to be a performance issue. It is now a much more refined query that'll run faster. So sometimes it's just as simple as adding another filter to the query.
Yeah, because those can add up. If you have 100 of those going at one time, they could, add up to slow the system down and stuff.
I have a question actually for you guys. I think that's pretty pertinent to this is, you've got, a lot of things that can slow down the system, but what about external queries, things that are integrated with your system? Do you ever find that it slows it down any as far as that's concerned? Especially things that are like real time. I think one of you have done the SCCM integration, things to that effect. Do you see any slowdowns? I haven't noticed any, but
all the stuff I've integrated, we wait for it. It's basically asynchronous, so it has no real noticeable impact because the user's not waiting on it. Nobody's waiting on anything.
Right.
On the things I've done. I'm sure if you did a crazy discovery thing or something, maybe Brent, I'm sure Brent has more experience on that one, but
I was going to say most of our stuff runs asynchronous, so we don't really have that issue. We do have some real-time stuff that goes back and forth, but it's asynchronous, so it doesn't wait or whatever. So have not seen any of those issues.
You'd have to be doing a lot to hurt their...
We've done some PowerShell, Power BI integration we just finished. And it's setting up a query from the Power BI side that they can hit whenever they want. There was a little bit of a concern that it would be a problem, but so far it hasn't been. But I'm only allowing it to hit one table.
Even then, the way the Power BI integrations work is it caches it to. I'm assuming you have a local server that the Power BI runs through, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's all caches to that server. We had a problem where it was, I think, defaults like once a day or something like that, or maybe even less than that.
It's less than that by default.
Yeah, we had to work with Microsoft, or not me, but somebody on the team did, to figure out how to get that to not be that long of a wait. I think we wanted it daily, and like I said, it was longer than that. So they were able to configure it. But you're querying your local server. All those people that do it, it's not real time. I'm doing air quotes. It's not real time. It's unless you get you don't let it cache. Maybe there's a way to do that, but that'd be on the Power BI side for that setting. I would not recommend that. At the very least, I would cache it like hourly at most.
Yes. Yep.
And even then, that's pretty darn aggressive. Most things shouldn't need that type of real time. If you need tickets or something, that's different. But usually, Power BI is reporting, so you should not.
Right. Dashboard.
Go ahead.
I was going to say dashboards normally wouldn't need real time. Dashboards are more even performance analytics is most of those reports and analytics all run in a 24-hour period. So it's just a dashboard usually is you just have to know that it's behind.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's something you review. It's not something you work out of, right? Unless you're high level, and then you can work out. But if you're a day-to-day help desk agent, you should not be working out of Power BI, I wouldn't think.
No. I mean, that is interesting though, because it is interesting how it caches it and how it is, how it works as far as that's concerned. I'm really surprised that it hasn't shown any signs of slowing down, and I guess that is why.
Yeah, you're hitting your local servers. If they hit refresh 100 times, ServiceNow doesn't care. It sent the data once to that server, and the local server.
When they're refreshing the data, they're not actually refreshing it from ServiceNow. They're refreshing it from their database.
Correct. They're refreshing it from the local server, unless that's the only way I've ever been involved with a Power BI integration. Was there's it's basically a mid server for your Power BI,
right?
Yeah,
and that's what it uses. And ServiceNow, it queries ServiceNow. However, whatever that interval. Again, the team I worked with ended up working with Microsoft to get it to be a shorter interval. They were not necessarily back-end BI experts, so but Microsoft helped them figure that out in a short amount of time, and that's how it works. So if you needed it to be hourly or less, I'm sure you could do it. I don't see the real time again for a report is you're just not being very efficient if that's how you're working. It's out of a report for real time type issues.
Right. So I will say, day-to-day operation wise, one of the most common things I see are how to. They come to me asking me questions. How do I do this? How do I do this? That tends to be one of the most consistent, kind of day-to-day operations. What about you guys? Do you get a lot of that?
I do. I usually either refer them to the knowledge base because we have documented a lot of those day-to-day things like that, or refer them to one of my other admins. But we do get a lot of that. So the user training is a lot of it's not a day-to-day, but it is a weekly thing. At least once or twice you get somebody wanting to do something. So
I think something that's really important that is overlooked is the training aspect, of what the admins need to do. They need to be out there talking to the people using it, doing training, telling them where to go and what to do as far as that's concerned. I think that's not done enough. So you have a lot of people that just don't know what the heck they're doing.
And there's a lot of enhancement type things too that come through that really aren't needed as an enhancement. It's just like a lot related to how you can filter a list, right?
Right.
I mean, you can make a list into a bar chart with one or two clicks rather, or you can filter it down. You can export it. There's so many things you can do that a standard end user with the 30 minutes they probably had introduction to ServiceNow, if that, or they're not going to have any idea. You can right click up there at the top and there's a whole nother context menu that comes out with all sorts of extra options, or how filtering works, or even the wildcards. They're not necessarily the same wildcards as some other tools use. So maybe it's just something as simple as that.
And the wildcards also, while you're there on that, the wildcards don't seem to always work the same in every part of ServiceNow either. When you're searching and stuff. So, that's something you have to educate them on too.
Yeah, right. Well, and I find that with those little things are great to do, but I think sometimes, it's about our releases. When we get done with a release and there's changes that have been made, having that communication to the rest of the organization is something that is just really invaluable. I mean, it's not done enough, and we really need to focus probably more effort into making sure that the communications and the training and those things like that happen. I know in the organizations that I've seen before that has been a real big problem. And it just seems like it's almost a no-brainer. I'm bringing out a new application, and I just expect you to use it, and without any training. You've got to do that training, and I find that it's a larger part of the admin's job than I initially anticipated.
Yeah,
you are the subject matter expert, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I've not worked on a team. Well, I guess that's kind of a lie. Never mind. I have worked on a team that had a training aspect to it. But generally, nowhere else have I been to a place where anyone on my team had any amount of training material creation experience.
Right.
Or not even just creating the material, but also delivering said material.
But that is often asked of us to do.
Oh, yeah. I've made videos, and as awesome as my voice is, I mean, talking off the top of your head versus reading a script, I've had many a redo.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they haven't really, and it's not, not that high a quality. And I'm sure, if you had someone who did it as their actual job, they would, or even if you gave, maybe that's something we should tell people to do is if you're going to have us do training, start having your ServiceNow teams go through a little mini training course on how to train the trainer type thing,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That would be helpful. But now it's definitely creating training material, whether it be KB articles, which are fairly easy to do. At least for us, I don't know if they're always logical to end users because, terminology is a big thing. Like .walk, I don't think anyone outside of ServiceNow, well, maybe a little bit outside of ServiceNow, but not many things besides ServiceNow users are going to understand what a .walk is. Or ServiceNow developers or admins, I don't think.
I use that in normal conversation all the time.
Yeah, well, you're weird.
At least you're on.
Yeah.
But just things like that, there's probably better examples than .walk, but there's just a lot of things that, even the Navigator, unless they've renamed that. I took the test recently. I hope it was still called the Navigator because they passed me. Anyway.
There you go.
No, but just calling it that doesn't mean anything to some people.
Right.
Or you say the search bar and they go to the address bar of the browser. Well, if you're using Edge, it is kind of also the search bar. Or actually even Chrome, Edge? I think. No, I don't, but okay. I have to test in it still.
Yeah. Well, yeah, anytime you're doing dev work, you're going to have to test in like everything. So do you like Edge? Have you tried the new Edge?
I have not tried the new fancy Chromium Edge. No, I have not.
It's okay. It has the feel of Chrome, honestly, but I still use Chrome, so there you go.
As I'm sure many percent of people still, although I haven't looked at the charts recently, but I guess that's getting a little sidetracked. But
we never go down rabbit trails on our podcast.
Never.
Definitely a first time there.
Oh yeah.
So before I forget, guys, we need to take a little bit of a commercial break here and listen to our sponsor. So we will be back in just a minute to talk about how to evangelize ServiceNow in your in your company. So hang on just a minute. We'll be right back.
This podcast was made with Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to create and publish your podcast. It's free. Creation tools with it allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Helps you distribute your podcast. It's super simple to publish to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, any of the major ones. You can make money from your podcast. There's no minimum listenership, so they make it super easy to monetize. It's really everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So why don't you go out and download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm and get started.
Welcome back, everybody.
We start the evangelizing. Are there any like dashboards or reports that you guys have created that you refer to on a daily basis, or is that pretty much no?
I do. I have one for orphan tickets, which they're not really orphaned. It's just the users refuse to click on the all tickets button. Or actually, I made them another one called unassigned just because I thought, maybe that would get them to click it. But as of yesterday, even I had somebody call me, I didn't know that was there. It's right above the one you click every day. But anyway.
I made a rule that if the ticket or a notification set up that if the ticket does not have a assignment group or anything like that, it notifies the service desk. And so they deal with those for me, for my
that would
instance.
Be lovely. This particular one is they're a one-off, so they kind of their own permissions and everything. But that's a good idea. That's mainly the thing I fight I don't do a ton of just admin level things. I'm mostly development these days, but the admin things I do are mostly related about, the permissions, and then also finding those tickets that they think disappear that are really just unassigned.
Yep. We have a homepage dashboard that we set up for our admins that they look at every time they log in or they go to their homepage. And it has a bunch of things like our feedback for knowledge articles, but it's really because of the way that our service portal is set up. We have a leave feedback button, and it goes into that feedback. And the only people that get those for the service portal are the knowledge or our admins. So they have that on the dashboard. They have, the user summary, so we can check to make sure everything's working there. We have different things about, we did have an issue with the requests not auto approving because of a broken workflow. We finally narrowed it down to which workflow was doing that. But so we had something on there for that. So we kind of used our homepage as a dashboard that would help us maintain some of those daily quirks that were happening. So,
well, and we use the dashboards a lot, but I've been one thing about it is in the organization I'm working with right now, they have a change manager, an incident management coordinator. They've got so they have a problem manager. So they have all of the they have a configuration manager. So they have all of the different people working in different areas of the platform. So I don't honestly see a tremendous amount of the admin side for that stuff, but they actually do get quite a bit of things for change and for problem. We just redid problem because they were giving us a lot of feedback of some things that were lacking. And those admins are the ones that take a lot of the feedback. So I kind of expect them as part of their day-to-day, and their job is to take that feedback in order to allow for us to do the dev work that need to do to make everything work for them.
There's also a neat little performance one that's, I believe one of my coworkers, I don't know where it came from, but it's just got a bunch of stats like, tickets in the last day, and then it separates them out by the type of ticket it was, or task. It's just off the task table. That's what we mostly build out of where I'm at. Just kind of tracking if there's any weird trends, and all of a sudden Group A starts submitting tons of tickets every day. I guess they're going to start using it. Maybe need to reach out to them, type of thing. It's more of a glance, but it's color coded, so that's always handy.
Yeah, I have built things like that for our change manager and our incident manager and problem manager. So they do have like those little things so they can see the spikes and stuff. And they're just reports that are on their homepage, which they've converted to dashboards. But they can watch those. Hey, wait, why are we getting 100 tickets all of a sudden on the same category and stuff? So yeah, those are very helpful for those type of admins to look at.
Yeah. And that's the one thing. It's like all of a sudden you get 500 emergency changes, and it's like, well, in the last 30 days, 20% or 30% or 50% or 80% in some cases are emergency changes. Well, why is that? And holding people accountable for those things. SLE breaches, the incident manager will actually go through and look for breaches and ask people, why is it breached? Can we help you? And those kind of things. Which ends up, a lot of those ended up being because, and this is one good thing for all these things to be checked daily, is because what happened was there weren't incidents anymore. They were given workarounds, and the problem was larger, and it really was a problem, not an incident. So, so that's kind of the what you get out of that daily reports, and the daily things that you look at are things like that you can say, okay, I see a trend here. What's going on? Oh, well, you can fix that. Here's how you fix it. You need to create problems from these because they're no longer incidents, they're problems. It's things like that come to light. I don't really handle a lot of those day to day, but I know those are really important to do. And a lot of admins are by themselves, right? I mean, it's just them.
All right. Yep.
The developer, they're the guy who does everything in the system, and so we have to kind of respect the fact that they're wearing a lot of hats, and maybe we have more, but of the one part of it, but that's because we work in a larger organization that has more people to do the other stuff.
Right. But when it comes down to that, I would suggest that if you're the admin, I would say using like a dashboard like Randy was suggested, or having even just a simple report that shows up on your homepage, because when you log in, it always goes to your homepage. So you look at that, you can put those little reports on there that kind of would key if you were running into issues with spike of incidents, or oh my gosh, we have 300 emergency changes. What happened to that? And that kind of stuff. So putting those on your homepage would help you track that kind of stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. And be proactive about it. Try and get those things done. One of my favorite leadership, coaches always says, hey, do more of the important and less of the urgent. And that's not to say the urgent isn't, you don't have to get it done, but if you do the important things, there'll be less of the urgent.
Right. Be proactive is always the best thing. Doesn't happen a lot in IT, but it's good to preach and try.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, switching gears. Let's switch gears to evangelizing. This actually is kind of near and dear to my heart. I love this topic. I love this topic for a couple of reasons. One, I really believe that if you believe in the product, you'll want to do this, and this will just kind of come naturally. And when it comes to talking to different parts of the organization and talking about what it can do and how it can help the organization is really important. I guess let me start with Randy. As a manager, what did you see as the best way to go about this kind of evangelization, having more and more of the platform used?
Well, I mean, we didn't. I don't know. That's kind of a loaded question for us because we were supporting it where we were at, so really didn't deal with that too much. I would say that the biggest thing was adding the reports that showed when tickets were closed, how long they had been open, and going through and reviewing those things and kind of going back and just having the user meeting saying, you're not getting in here, you're not making the updates, you're not adding notes, you're not doing these things, and we need to get this. This is part of your performance, so use the platform.
Yeah. One of the things that I found interesting is every time we would do something, then all of a sudden you'd bring us 10 more things to do. I'm sure like any good manager would, but it was like people were just flocking to you the more things that we did. How did that happen? I mean, was it just natural? Was it something that you were doing specifically?
Well, for the most part, when I started out collecting use cases for us to start working on, we tried to find the ones that were low-hanging fruit that would give a high return to do first. And so everything that we went out and we talked to people, we asked them, if we're going to automate this for you, if we're going to put this in the system for you, how much time are you spending on it now? How many people are involved in it now, and things like that, so that when we went back and put things into ServiceNow or changed the way things were working in ServiceNow to improve them, we already had the metrics built in to say this is how much things have improved. And then after that, it was pretty much organic because as we improve things for other people with, quick wins that were not just quick wins, but quick wins that had a metric attached to them. The other parts of the organization just naturally wanted to come in and I have this problem. Can you fix it? I have this problem. Can you fix it? Kind of thing. So
show them the data and they will come.
Something like that. Yeah.
So
yes, and those customers are still coming in that organization. I can tell you.
But I think that's one of the biggest things about evangelizing, right? That doesn't mean you're going to go shout it at the sky. I mean, that's not going to help you any. I think it's more about solving people's problems and then going to them, showing them how you solve their problem, and getting the word of mouth, like any organization, that you solved their problem. And people, as they say, you build it, they'll come, right?
Well, and the nice thing about ServiceNow is it solves their problems, but it also makes it so much easier and nicer for them. One of the biggest issues we had in the organization, or one of the biggest forms and processes that we've done in our organization, previous to being in ServiceNow and building a custom app for them, they were doing it on paper, and it was a reimbursement kind of thing for people, and they had to do, essays to say, this is what I did and this is what I learned from it and all that. And they had to submit that all and then fill out all this paperwork and everything. We showed them, hey, we can do that in a form. We can do the approvals online. And it took what they were doing, and it took them before, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks to get all that paperwork together and just kind of go through it in the glance. Now they can do all that and do all the approvals and then get the bonuses out in 2 weeks now. And it went from having like 10 people doing it to 2 people. One of them's a primary and one of them's a backup. So once you get those success stories, that helps also getting other people to come in and help.
Yeah, and I think in that particular one, well, there was that, and there was the travel as well, where, we found that people were putting in, you had mileage that varied widely. People, everybody was going from one of the branches to another branch, and when you reviewed the reports, the amount of mileage reported was varying widely. So we went in and standardized that and just said, hey, if you go from A to B, it's this many miles, using Google Maps API basically, and so that standardized that and reduced the amount of unreimbursable expenses we were sending out too.
Right. So I guess the 2 points of that, both of those stories are, if you make things work really smoothly and make the customer happy, they'll go out and evangelize the tool also for you. So you get more and more people to help you get this out there and working.
That's definitely been the way I've been able to do it. Is you start out, you do what Randy said, where the last time I did this, it wasn't particularly me being proactive, but anyway, you get a list of use cases and you start delivering on those, and you turn, especially something like you said, a paper process or even an email process. Paper and email, they don't have ability to stop you from submitting unless you have field X filled out. I mean, that's one of the biggest benefits, and that's not just for one side. That's for both. Me as a submitter, if there's 100 questions and I forget to fill out one, it might not be malice. It might just be I filled out 99 others and, my eyes looked over it. And so having a nice big red, and it takes the browser window right back to it. Those type of things, the end user and the client are both going to basically be preaching about how much better their process is. They may not be saying ServiceNow, but once people start realizing where their process is, you're getting the benefit by association, really.
Exactly.
Well, and the other thing about that is, what we highlighted in in these stories are relatively simple things. So the mistake that I see managers and people that are trying to push a particular technology doing is they look for these big grandiose things to try to fix, and they end up taking on a project that's going to take 6 months to implement, and at a best case scenario. Whereas there are lots of little inefficiencies that make for huge ROI in every organization. And so if you're just starting out with something and you need to get the momentum going, find those simple inefficiencies and do that. This is, we looked at it as a paper form, and nobody was thinking, how much time are we going, how much time are we wasting? How much resources are we wasting on these paper forms? Until we started going out and putting numbers to it. Well, you got to do this, and then you print it. And that's, your employee is unproductive for this amount of time because they're filling out this paperwork, and then they're walking it around to get signatures. And then the people processing it are unproductive for this amount of time for, That was a really simple thing that didn't take a long time to build a solution for. And I think that people make the mistake of going out there looking for the home run when, 4 base hits is the same thing.
Right. I also, one of the things, depending on where you are in your organization, where you are as far as the hierarchy, there's limitations, I would imagine. But one of the things that it was really a great thing for me to do that I've done in the past is go and talk to each of the managers of the different areas, and that's where you get your list of things that people have desires and wants for. That's where you find your low-hanging fruit, is by talking to people. What? You need that fixed? Well, I can do that for you, right? Or make a list, sort it out, pick the top 5 or 10 things, and start at it. Getting people involved, getting people together, really get the communication lines between, the ServiceNow team and the other areas of the business is really important, because otherwise they won't know you have the capability to do it. If you don't have the capability to talk to them, they won't know you have the capability to fix it for them.
Well, yeah, one of the things. Go ahead. I was just going to say that one of the first things that I did in that role was one of the first staff meetings was to say, I want everybody to start adding to a list of, problems. And I want to, when you're out there, when you're working with somebody, if you overhear another problem, you'll make note of it and bring it back. And then let's build this gigantic list. And then periodically, let's go through that list and find out, are these things that we can tackle? And there may not be. I mean, there's a lot of things that we ended up talking about that we couldn't tackle, but there are also a lot of little things that we could tackle that kind of added up as well.
Right. Absolutely.
And one of the things I think a lot of people forget about or don't even focus on is some of those simple wins can just be putting in a catalog form, because a lot of the requests and forms that companies are going to need can fit right into that process, and you can do it quickly and simply, and it'll make their jobs a lot easier, and you can, win some more customers over that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, automating processes is one of the best benefits of a tool like ServiceNow. At least I think.
I would say that's probably the one of the greatest starting places to be is the catalog items. I mean, you start taking away time that people spend doing those manual, hard, kind of pain in the rear, easy things. When you get those wins, the more gratifying they're going to be.
I just think it's amazing that there's still so many things that are manual in every organization I go into in 2020, that there's, sounds crazy, but there's still a lot of people walking paper around doing things that could be quickly automated.
Right.
I've noticed, at least the last 2 places I've been, it's, HR is kind of an untapped goldmine of small, document to electronic type things you can do. Where I'm at now, they have a third-party tool they use, but yet we still have to excuse me, you still have to print things off and sign them, and then they get back to HR by hand. I mean, I don't understand why you would have a tool that is basically just an Excel file whenever. I mean, we could do that, right? ServiceNow can be an Excel file if that's all you want out of it.
That's right.
But it can also add a nice or a better front end to it, multiple ways of accessing it, security around said thing. And most of those things are just simple clicks whenever you go to build it.
Yeah.
Much better.
Reporting, and you can email it out automatically if people are obsessed with their emails or
not to mention the products. I mean, there is HR products and ITOM products and all these other products that I've been shocked that people don't know about them. I talked to the security team the other day that goes, "What, ServiceNow is a security incident tool?" And I'm like, how do you not know this? They've been running ServiceNow for 3 years. It's like, yes, they do.
Yeah.
And even if you don't want the full suite, you can always, we've got the APIs you can call almost, most tools, I would say nowadays, for IT at least, have some way of doing a integration, whether it be outbound or inbound. I mean, it's not hard to do.
Nope.
You don't need a fancy third-party developer to do that stuff for you. You can, between ServiceNow's developer training and who you have in-house, I mean, you might need someone like, Sharpstone or to help you out there. But
say it louder.
Sharpstone. Great folks there at Sharpstone.
Did you say Sharpstone?
I think I did. I've heard of them before. I heard they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, I heard they're pretty good as long as you're not dealing with this guy named Justin.
Yeah, well, he gets it done too quick. He probably will save you too much money if you go with Justin.
Yeah, you like Justin.
Anyway, unless you're doing a very, very fancy, or I guess not fancy, in-depth integration, you probably can get it done with someone who knows the basics of JavaScript. Again, having a third party is, of course, going to be helpful, assuming you find a good partner like Sharpstone. Like I said, there's a lot of opportunities without a lot of knowledge being required. It may not be a perfect integration on the first try, but ServiceNow is pretty good about holding a developer's hand to a certain degree when you're developing it. So,
right, and they also have that REST Explorer that helps with those REST calls and all that kind of stuff too.
If you're doing it, the REST Explorer is amazing. It gives you the code literally in I think it's 4 different languages you can choose. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a wonderful tool, and even outbound's not hard. So
no, it's not.
Just you got it's the same area, different page. There's a lot of opportunity there. So even if they don't want to spend the money for the full module, you can at the very least have it creating incidents with at least in a test environment within a day.
Right. Yeah, it's not. It's the one thing about ServiceNow, they've made it very easy to understand and very easy to work in.
Yeah, the older it gets, the community is kind of hit or miss. The community site that ServiceNow hosts. I've had much less luck lately in there, but
it used to be great.
Yeah, you type it in there, and if you didn't know it, somebody would reply quickly. But
right, it used to be a lot more involvement from the developers. From the users, and doesn't seem like there is as much anymore. But I've found some and gotten some good answers recently, but not as quickly as you used to.
And Stack Overflow now also has a section or a tag rather for ServiceNow. I've seen some good answers on Stack Overflow. It's far more of a developer-oriented site, which probably is why the questions and answers are both a little more detailed. Not always, it's still got its uses.
I also find there's a lot of older stuff in and that's
check the date when you load an article on the community.
Yeah, you're grabbing a code and then and make sure you actually check when it was posted, because you may be loading the code that doesn't work anymore, So
yeah, a lot of that stuff, especially with the way you do AJAX calls, like they no longer let you do synchronous. You have to use the asynchronous way, which most of the old answers are forcing you to do, we're telling you to do synchronous, because it's a lot easier to do, and you don't, it just won't work if when you submit it, you can get it waits for the response. So it's a lot easier for a new developer to be able to handle how it works. But because it made the page wait, and it's a good choice on their part, but that's one example of older code that you'll copy and paste, and it's just not going to, you're not going to see any, errors in whatever IDE you use, because the code is actually written correctly and it's, looks right. But whenever you try to submit it, they've deprecated the call to where you can't actually run it. So definitely check the date. If they post the version, that's helpful, but people don't always mention, hey, I'm on, Jakarta or whatever version they happen to be on. You not just need to see that, 5 years ago, you might want to double check that answer. Probably, well, it may. I mean, there's still some that'll work, but anyway, check the date for sure.
Yeah. Just something to keep in mind.
Parse out the code, make sure it's going to work. I mean, look at it,
that horse.
And actually decide it. So awesome. So I think the moral to the story in this case is do a good job, help people, try and continuously bringing solutions to the organization, and by doing those things, you're going to just naturally be evangelizing, and go talk to the managers that are in each of the areas. Talk to them, ask them what their needs are. Find out what their needs are and find areas that you can do quick wins.
Yeah, quick wins. There's a huge. Yeah. I believe at the two places that I think have been successful, like overly successful, have been because of the quick wins that ended up having users that were far more vocally pleased than what I ever expected them to be.
Yes. Yeah.
And that has given a good. Even at one of the places, it was not. ServiceNow did not necessarily have a good name to it because it was kind of forced upon them without a whole lot of, I guess, training would be what my assumption was. But once you start getting those quick wins and you start redesigning more toward the user, that's the biggest wins, I think, for me, for getting the name out there.
Yep. One thing that I've also, we've talked about Sharpstone and all, but ServiceNow does have a program called Customer Success Advocates. Every customer has at least one person assigned to their account to help with that stuff. So if you're running into problems of how do I get my customers to do this, or, what's the best way to get communication out, or can you help me with some communication? That's what those people are there for. So they're supposed to help you with that kind of stuff. They will also help you if you're having problems with high tickets or getting things escalated. They'll help with that, but they're also there to help you win over your customers to get your system working.
Bit of a rabbit trail, but don't be afraid to put a high ticket in.
Yeah.
Something small. They will. Oh, yeah. They will help you. I've not once had, and I've put in a good, I don't know the number, and I wouldn't want to tell you if I did, of how many tickets I put in, but I've never had a bad rep, or like a rude rep. I've had some that didn't necessarily help, but they've always escalated it, or maybe it was just something I was doing simple that I was doing wrong. But don't be afraid to put them in for actual issue, assuming you've tried, some amount of troubleshooting.
Right, but they're even if you've done a little bit, they'll come back and they're always nice about, oh, it looks like it was something that you did, blah blah blah. But all they do is they just will tell you how to fix it and go on. They're not gonna, oh, well, you screwed it up kind of attitude.
There's no reprimand for putting in a basic high ticket.
No,
it might be if you started doing thousands, I guess, but
maybe. I've never done that many.
I'm sure you would have. It would take a lot, because I've put in a lot of tickets and they've not once said this should not have been a ticket. At worst case, I've had one where they linked me the knowledge base article But then they called me and we walked through it together. So it's not like, they still weren't saying, hey, here's the answer. They said, this is probably the answer. And then they called me and walked me through it. So anyway, don't be afraid. Back to your regularly scheduled program.
Yeah.
Well, to add to that, I've even turned in things. I've turned in a couple that I thought were just something I messed up, and how can I go fix this now? And they've come back and said, oh, no, that's a problem, and they've opened problems for it. So you might think you have messed something up or did something, and it's turned out it's been an issue. So, it doesn't hurt to do that. So, okay, I'll get off the soapbox too.
Good example of that's the multi-row inside the catalog in the portal. They don't support it. They support it on the ITIL view or whatever they call that view now.
Uh-huh.
No. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think eventually that multi-row is fairly new. Eventually that will be supported on the portal, but it's one of those things that we know that these products are constantly evolving and constantly getting better. So, instead of trying to manipulate around it, just wait. They'll make the change, they'll make the improvement. You'll see, in the next couple of versions, oh, well, it's not going to work on the portal, and everybody will be super happy about it.
Well,
I guess I worded that. My point on that one originally was not to try to point out they didn't bother to make it work in the portal, which I do think is kind of a slap in the face to them, but let's not go there. No, it was really just the fact that it looked like it was something on our end. We were trying to figure out, like it was one of our junior devs who was originally doing it. And so then it finally, I don't know how many hours they spent trying to troubleshoot it, eventually made it up to me. And I've never tried to do a multi-row inside of the catalog on any catalog, let alone portal view.
Yeah.
And so, I started messing with it. And after a couple hours, I was like, this looks like it should, there's nothing we are doing wrong on this. And so we submitted a ticket. But there was a lot, I'm assuming several, knowing that person, a couple days probably of troubleshooting, deleting and recreating the same thing. And all that really should have happened was you try it once legitimately. You would still probably reach out to whoever your lead is to have them make sure you're not doing something simple like a simple syntax issue like someone on this call commonly has.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Jason semicolon Gibson. He's
no.
But no, I mean, that sort of thing. You could waste a lot of money, especially when the code is written correctly, or in this case, you don't actually write any code. It's just part of their widget, and it just simply fails. So
yeah, you assume it's going to work. Yeah.
And it even took them a couple transfers before they finally got someone who pointed us to an enhancement that had been an enhancement request that was pending for that to be out there. So again, we had that sort of thing will drive a developer crazy, especially a new developer. That particular person, they're trying to prove to everyone else that they can do something as simple as a catalog item, which, with my initial reaction, I won't lie, was how can you mess up a catalog item?
Do you want a list? Because I can send them to you.
Well, I mean, there's no code.
I've seen some things.
Oh, I've seen some.
But, I mean, again, they're usually a unique one-off, though. It's not something
Justin, I had to write a 3-page standardization document to keep them from messing up a forms.
I had an admin, or actually an architect, develop a form in the catalog, deploy it. It took the whole catalog down. None of them worked. So yes, you can do it simply.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, I've known someone who may or may not be me in the past who trying to use pure JavaScript inside of ServiceNow. So that's something else you got to watch out for your new developers. Is ServiceNow blocks pretty much anything you try to do in the DOM. And
yeah, I remember that person never listened to the other guy telling him you can't do that.
Some
but
old washed up admin. What's he know about development? Apparently, it turns out he knows a whole lot more than I did about the inner workings of ServiceNow. So, but again, point to be made: put in high tickets.
Yes.
After a simple amount of due diligence.
Right. Well, guys, I hate to cut it short. It's only been like an hour.
Don't think it means what you think it means.
Yeah.
Well,
But
it's
thank you.
been a pleasure, Jason.
Yes,
Jason.
yes.
It's really. I'm going to make you a nameplate with that, I think.
Please, yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah. Anyway, but thank you guys. Absolutely. Brent, always a pleasure. Justin.
Oh, it's always fun.
Randy, again, I really appreciate you being on the call with us on this. So next, we've got several topics we're coming up for the next few. If you want your topic covered, we'd love to. So message us. We're on LinkedIn. We're all over the place now. We're even on Facebook. So look us up. Send us a message. Tell us where you're going to, what you want us to cover. And if it's not completely ridiculous, like, current, fashion in IT.
Hey, I thought good topic.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that might need that.
Yes. Yeah. So that would be me. I don't have a very good fashion sense, but you won't know that until the video ones. But yeah, keep an eye out. We are going to be doing some video ones as well. Again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you next time. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.